What's up, Kings? Welcome back to the channel, the place where we expose the real truth about attraction, emotional connection, and modern dating that most people are too distracted to truly understand. If you're new here, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into something most men completely misread. We're talking about the subtle behavioral signs a woman starts showing when she's been emotionally disconnected, physically untouched, and craving genuine masculine presence for a long time. Not just attention, not validation from social media, real connection, real chemistry, real emotional safety. And listen carefully, because the fifth sign in this video changes everything. It's the difference between being viewed as just a nice guy and becoming the man she can't stop thinking about when she's alone at night, replaying your conversations in her head. Most men overlook these signs completely, because they're too busy trying to impress women instead of understanding them. Before we go further, I want you to do something for me. If you've ever felt confused by mixed signals, if you've ever walked away from a situation later realizing she was probably interested but you doubted yourself, hit that like button and comment below with the word aware. I read the comments and I genuinely want to know how many men are starting to wake up emotionally and socially. I'm Lauren. And over the years, I've worked with countless people struggling to understand attraction, emotional intimacy, attachment, and the psychology behind connection. And one thing I've learned is this: women rarely communicate desire in obvious, direct ways. Most of the time, attraction leaks out through behavior, body language, emotional testing, and subtle invitations. The problem is, most men were never taught how to recognize those signals without becoming either overly aggressive or painfully passive. And I want you to really think about this for a second. Have you ever had a woman suddenly start sitting closer to you, touching your arm during conversations, opening up emotionally out of nowhere, asking for your opinion on deeply personal things? Maybe at the time, you brushed it off. Maybe you told yourself she was just friendly. But weeks later, when she started dating someone else, you realized there were signs you completely missed. That regret hits hard, because deep down, you know it wasn't about looks. It wasn't about money. It was about emotional awareness, presence, confidence, timing. And that's exactly what this video is about. The first sign is subtle, but once you understand the psychology behind it, you'll never miss it again. Touch becomes her hidden language. Now, let me explain something important here, because most men misunderstand female touch completely. Human beings are biologically wired for physical connection. Research in psychology and neuroscience has shown that healthy touch affects oxytocin levels, cortisol reduction, emotional bonding, and feelings of safety. When someone goes a long period without meaningful physical affection, the nervous system notices. And women, especially emotionally intelligent women, often begin expressing that unmet need in quiet, indirect ways. Not dramatic, not obvious, subtle. She finds little excuses to touch you during conversations. Her hand lingers on your arm for a second too long. She brushes imaginary lint off your shirt. She fixes your collar, even when it doesn't need fixing. She sits close enough that your shoulders lightly touch, even though there's plenty of room elsewhere. Now, here's where men usually mess this up. They either panic and freeze, or they immediately assume it's sexual and become too aggressive. Both reactions kill the emotional tension instantly. A woman wants to feel emotionally safe before she fully relaxes into attraction. So when she initiates these tiny moments of contact, she's unconsciously asking a question. Can this man stay calm in intimacy? Not just physical intimacy, emotional intimacy too. Can you hold eye contact without becoming nervous? Can you stay grounded without acting overly eager? Can you respond naturally instead of treating every touch like a green light to rush things? Because confidence is not rushing. Confidence is emotional composure. I remember a coaching client once telling me about a woman he worked with. Every day during lunch breaks, she would lightly touch his forearm while laughing at his jokes. She would lean toward him when speaking. She would find excuses to stand next to him during meetings, and yet he convinced himself she was probably just nice. Months later, she started dating another man in the office. Why? Because that man noticed her emotional invitations and responded with calm, masculine energy instead of self-doubt. That's what many men miss. Women are often observing how you respond to closeness before they ever become fully vulnerable with you. And here's a question I want you to answer honestly. How many opportunities have you missed because you doubted yourself? Seriously, think about it. Sometimes attraction doesn't disappear because she lost interest. Sometimes it disappears because she got tired of sending signals that were never understood. Now the second sign gets even deeper psychologically. She starts fishing for emotional reassurance in indirect ways. This is one of the most misunderstood behaviors in modern dating. A woman who's emotionally disconnected for a long time often begins craving emotional visibility more than compliments. That's important. Most men think attraction is built by constantly telling a woman she's beautiful. But emotional intimacy isn't built through generic praise. It's built through emotional recognition. So she starts asking deeper questions. Do you think I'm hard to understand? Why do you think relationships fail nowadays? Do you think people can really love someone long-term? Be honest. Do I come across as cold sometimes? Now, on the surface, those questions sound casual. But psychologically, they're not casual at all. They're emotional probes. She's trying to figure out whether you can understand her beneath the surface. And this is where emotionally immature men fail badly. They respond logically instead of emotionally. She says, "Maybe I'm too emotional." And he replies, "No, you're fine." Conversation dead. But an emotionally intelligent man understands what she's really asking. She's asking, "If I reveal more of myself to you, will you judge me?" That's the real question underneath. And when you respond with emotional depth instead of surface-level reassurance, something changes. You say, "I think you feel things deeply." And honestly, that's rare nowadays. Most people hide from their emotions. Now she feels seen. And being seen emotionally is one of the strongest forms of attraction for women. Not because women are complicated, but because emotional safety creates openness. There's actually fascinating research on attachment psychology showing that emotional validation lowers defensiveness and increases emotional bonding. In simple terms, when someone feels emotionally understood, their nervous system relaxes around you. That's why some men can create intense attraction without looking like models. Their presence feels emotionally safe. And let me tell you something most dating coaches never talk about. A woman who feels emotionally safe with you will often become more physically affectionate naturally. Because emotional intimacy and physical attraction are deeply connected for many women. This is why some men obsess over pickup lines, while other men effortlessly create chemistry just by making a woman feel understood. One is performance, the other is connection. And connection always wins long-term. Now, before I continue, I want you to comment below. What do you think women crave more today? Attention or emotional safety? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts because the answers reveal a lot about modern relationships. The third sign is where her body starts revealing feelings her words may still hide. And honestly, this part is fascinating. The human body leaks emotional truth constantly. Psychologists call these nonverbal cues involuntary behavioral signals. In other words, attraction often appears physically before someone consciously admits it emotionally. You'll notice she mirrors your movements without realizing it. If you lean back, she leans back. If you slow your voice down, her tone softens too. She starts playing with her hair more around you. Her posture opens up. She angles her body toward you in group settings, even when talking to other people. And one of the biggest signs? Sustained eye contact followed by nervous breaking of eye contact. That combination is powerful because it reveals emotional tension. There's a difference between someone casually looking at you and someone feeling drawn toward you emotionally. You can feel it. And women especially communicate heavily through energy and emotional atmosphere. Much more than men realize. I once spoke to a woman who admitted she knew she liked a man long before she consciously accepted it herself. She said every time he walked into the room, she became hyper-aware of her appearance. She adjusted her clothes, fixed her hair, sat differently, laughed more. Not because she planned to, because attraction changed her behavior automatically. And here's the important part. A mature man doesn't respond to those signals with pressure. He responds with calm awareness. That's what creates polarity. She moves closer emotionally, and instead of lunging desperately for validation, he slows down. He stays grounded. He creates tension naturally instead of forcing outcomes. And ironically, that patience often increases attraction even more. Because emotional control is attractive, desperation is not. Most men sabotage attraction because they cannot tolerate uncertainty. The moment they sense interest, they rush to secure it immediately. But attraction often grows in emotional space, in anticipation, in the pause between moments. That's why mystery matters. That's why pacing matters. And that's why emotionally intelligent men stand out so powerfully today. Because most people are operating from anxiety, fear, and instant gratification. Now, here's where things get even more intense. Because the next sign reveals whether she's starting to emotionally test your strength without even realizing it. And trust me, if you misunderstand this next behavior, you can destroy attraction without knowing why. So let's continue, because this next sign is where attraction stops being surface level and starts becoming emotional risk. She begins testing your emotional stability. Now, before some of you misunderstand that word test, let me clarify something important. Women are not sitting around consciously planning manipulative games like movie villains. Most emotional tests happen subconsciously. They happen because attraction naturally creates vulnerability, and vulnerability makes people cautious, especially women who've been hurt before, especially women who've gone months or years without feeling genuinely safe with a man. See, when a woman starts feeling emotionally drawn toward you, her nervous system immediately starts asking questions. Can I trust him? Will he judge me? Will he lose interest if he sees the real version of me? Is he emotionally steady or emotionally weak? And this is where many men unintentionally fail, because instead of staying centered, they become reactive. She teases him a little, and he gets defensive. She takes longer to text back, and he panics. She opens up emotionally, and he immediately tries to fix her problems instead of simply understanding her. But emotional maturity isn't about fixing everything. It's about creating space where someone feels safe enough to be human. A woman once told me about 2 different men she dated. The first one constantly needed reassurance. Every disagreement became emotional chaos. If she seemed distant for one evening, he spiraled into insecurity and overthinking. The second man? Completely different energy. When she had a stressful day, he listened calmly. When she became emotional, he didn't judge or retreat. He stayed emotionally grounded without becoming cold. And she admitted something fascinating. She said being around him made her feel feminine, relaxed, and emotionally safe in a way she hadn't experienced in years. That's the power of emotional steadiness. And gentlemen, this matters more today than ever before because modern dating has created emotionally exhausted people. So many individuals are carrying disappointment, betrayal, ghosting trauma, abandonment fears, and emotional burnout. Which means when someone finally meets a person who feels emotionally grounded, it stands out immediately. Now here's how these emotional tests often appear in real life. She might suddenly say, "You probably talk to a lot of women." Or, "I'm kind of difficult sometimes." Or even, "You wouldn't be able to handle me." What she's actually watching is your reaction. Do you become needy, defensive, overly eager to prove yourself? Or do you stay relaxed, playful, emotionally composed? Because confidence is not loud. Confidence feels calm. That's something many men completely misunderstand. They think masculinity means dominance, control, or acting emotionally unavailable. But psychologically, Secure masculine energy feels grounded, emotionally present, and self-assured, not performative. Real confidence doesn't rush to convince people, and women feel that difference immediately. This is why some men walk into a room and naturally attract attention without saying much. Their nervous system isn't screaming for validation. Their energy feels emotionally settled, and that emotional steadiness becomes incredibly attractive to women who are tired of chaos. Now, I want you to think about your own behavior honestly for a second. When you start liking someone, do you become more emotionally calm or more emotionally reactive? That answer reveals a lot, because one of the strongest predictors of attraction and relationship success isn't looks. It's emotional regulation, the ability to stay connected without losing yourself. And the truth is, many women are secretly starving for that kind of masculine presence today. Not toxicity, not arrogance, not manipulation. Presence. Now, the fifth sign. This is the one most men completely miss even when it's happening right in front of them. She starts creating excuses to spend time alone with you. And psychologically, this is huge, because women rarely move directly toward vulnerability without creating emotional safety first. So instead of openly saying, "I want intimacy," or "I want to be close to you," she creates situations where closeness can happen naturally. This is where emotional intelligence becomes everything. She asks you to help her with something small at her apartment. She invites you over to watch a movie. She asks you to stay longer after everyone else leaves. She finds reasons to continue conversations late into the night. And no, this doesn't automatically mean physical intimacy is guaranteed, but it does mean something important. She feels emotionally comfortable enough to create private space with you. And that matters, because privacy creates possibility. I remember a story from a subscriber who wrote to me after finally understanding this dynamic. He said a woman he liked had invited him over multiple times to help her cook dinner. Every single time, he kept the interaction extremely formal because he was terrified of misreading the situation. Months later, she admitted, "I kept waiting for you to realize I wanted emotional closeness with you." That hit him hard, because he realized his fear of rejection made him emotionally unavailable. And this happens constantly. Men become so afraid of being disrespectful or making mistakes that they disconnect completely from emotional tension instead of learning how to navigate it maturely. And let me be very clear here. Healthy attraction is not about pressure. It's not about manipulation. It's not about forcing physical escalation. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing emotional openness and responding with emotional intelligence. That's the difference between a boy chasing validation and a man creating connection. A grounded man enters her space calmly. He pays attention to her comfort level. He reads her energy. He listens. He creates emotional warmth instead of rushing toward outcomes. And ironically, that restraint often deepens attraction far more than aggressive behavior ever could, because emotionally safe tension is powerful. Now, here's something most men never hear. Women often remember how you made them feel emotionally far longer than what you actually said. Think about that. Years later, they may forget your exact words, but they remember whether they felt relaxed around you, whether they felt judged, whether your presence felt calming or draining. That's why emotional atmosphere matters so much. And honestly, this is where the conversation becomes deeper than dating. Because what we're really talking about here is human connection. The desire to feel seen, wanted, safe, understood. Underneath all the flirting, all the attraction, all the tension, that's what most people are truly craving. Connection without performance. And sadly, modern dating has pushed many people into masks and emotional games because vulnerability feels risky now. But emotionally intelligent people still recognize authenticity when they feel it. That's why self-awareness changes everything. The more emotionally secure you become, the easier it is to recognize genuine attraction without forcing, chasing, or overthinking every interaction. And if you've made it this far into the video, I want to say something directly to you. A lot of men were never taught emotional intelligence growing up. They were taught how to suppress emotions, avoid vulnerability, and chase validation through status or achievement. But real connection requires awareness, presence, patience. The good news? These skills can absolutely be learned. You can become the kind of man who understands emotional dynamics naturally instead of constantly feeling confused by women. And that's one of the biggest reasons I created the Lauren Mind Game community, because I wanted a space where we could talk honestly about attraction, psychology, confidence, emotional connection, and modern relationships without fake alpha act tough guy nonsense. So, if you've been enjoying this conversation, subscribe to Lauren Mind Game and turn on notifications because the next video is going even deeper into the psychology of emotional attraction and why certain men instantly make women feel emotionally addicted while others get ignored no matter how hard they try. And before we end, I want to leave you with this thought. Stop obsessing over how to impress women. Start learning how to understand people. Because the men who truly stand out aren't always the loudest, richest, or most perfect-looking men in the room. They're the men who make others feel emotionally safe, emotionally alive, and emotionally understood. That's rare now, and rare things become valuable. If this video opened your eyes even a little, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below with the number 5 if the last sign completely changed the way you see attraction. I read more comments than you think, and I genuinely love seeing these conversations evolve. Until next time, stay observant, stay emotionally grounded, and remember this. The strongest connections are never forced, they're felt.